News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow.
Karen, we begin with new developments surrounding Jay Powell and the Fed's building renovations in Washington. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is the latest Trump administration official to pile on. And Bloomberg's John Tucker joins us with the very latest. John.
And Nathan, Bessent says in a social media post, there should be a review of the decision to renovate parts of the Federal Reserve headquarters in Washington. Bessent also said the Fed should conduct an exhaustive internal review of its non-monetary policy operations. This is just the latest salvo in the Trump administration's relentless attack on the Fed and its leader, Jerome Powell, mostly for refusing to bend to the president's will and lower interest rates. The probe into the headquarters renovation, which is now more than $700 million over budget, has stoked speculation it could provide a way for Donald Trump to fire Powell. Cost overruns for federal buildings are hardly unusual. A lesser-known Trump ally, meantime, Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, has also jumped into the fray, urging the Justice Department to investigate Powell for allegedly misleading Congress about the cost overruns, even though there's no evidence of any wrongdoing. In New York, I'm John Tucker, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, John, thank you. As investors wait to see how the whole Powell saga plays out, stocks continue to reach new heights. The S&P 500 closed at yet another record high yesterday. Wells Fargo's top U.S. equity strategist Christopher Harvey says he expects the S&P 500 to deliver another double-digit increase in the second half of the year.
What we're seeing is the winners continue to win. The Uber cap companies have the higher margins, are gaining more market share. There is a real secular trade in AI that will continue. I was here during the 90s. This is not a fair comparison. It is much stronger and the fundamentals are much better than today than they were back then.
And Harvey is the most bullish strategist tracked by Bloomberg, forecasting the S&P 500 will climb above 7,000 by the end of the year. It closed yesterday at just over 6,300 for the first time.
And Karen, Chris Harvey isn't the only one bullish on U.S. equities. A cohort of the world's largest asset managers is leaning harder into the rally in risk assets. Firms such as Invesco, Fidelity International, and J.P. Morgan Asset Management are reinforcing bullish bets across technology shares from the U.S. to Asia, as well as on emerging market assets. The high-octane wager is that while President Trump is threatening to disrupt the economic order anew, he will step back from the brink.
Well, Nathan, earnings continue to roll in with more than 30 companies in the S&P 500 reporting today. Among them, General Motors. We get a preview with Bloomberg's Tom Busby.
GM is likely to report vehicle sales and market share in the U.S. grew during the second quarter, with a lot of help from EVs and lower-priced models like the Chevy Equinox small SUV. The automaker also likely to stress the biggest hit this year to its bottom line from President Trump's 25% tariffs on imported cars and auto parts. GM stated previously it expects upwards of $5 billion in tariff impact this year, a third of which it plans to offset through cost-cutting moves. Bloomberg consensus calls for revenue of $46.27 billion on adjusted earnings per share of $2.33. Tom Busby, Bloomberg Radio.
Okay, Tom, thank you. As the U.S. imposed deadline on tariff deals draws closer, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick met for more than 2 hours yesterday in Washington with Japan's chief trade negotiator. Barring a deal, universal tariffs on Japan's exports to the U.S. are set to rise to 25% on August 1st. That's up from the baseline 10% and an original 24%.
BlackRock is restricting the use of company devices in China, Nathan. In an internal memo seen by Bloomberg News, the world's largest asset manager told staff to use temporary loaner phones and not to bring company laptops when traveling to China for business trips. The changes come amid growing jitters around business travel to China, with U.S.-China geopolitical tensions weighing on global financial firms.
And Karen, Microsoft is still trying to stop hackers who are wreaking global havoc after exploiting a flaw in the firm's software. Over the weekend, Microsoft released a fix for the vulnerability in servers of the SharePoint document management software, but they say they are still working to repair other parts of the system. Cybersecurity researchers say the flaw was used to break into file systems of national governments in Europe, the Middle East, and the U.S.
Now, Nathan, let's get the latest on the Jeffrey Epstein case. It's starting to affect legislative business on Capitol Hill. Democrats on the House Rules Committee used a hearing on several Republican bills to call for amendments releasing files on the child sex offender. That forced Republicans to call off the hearing indefinitely, and it could mean the House heads into its summer recess early. At the White House, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was asked why President Trump has not called for a full release of the Epstein files.
The president has said if the Department of Justice and the FBI want to move forward with releasing any further credible evidence, they should do so. As to why they have or have not or will, you should ask the FBI about that.
Meanwhile, the White House says it will remove the Wall Street Journal from the small group of reporters who will be traveling with President Trump on his trip to Scotland later this month. The president is suing the paper over a report that he gave Epstein a suggestive birthday letter more than 20 years ago.
In other media news, Karen, billionaire Patrick Soon-Shiong says he's taking the Los Angeles Times public over the next year. He made the announcement on Jon Stewart's The Daily Show. If an initial public offering goes ahead, the LA Times would join the New York Times and News Corporation among the largest publicly traded news organization.
And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Karen Moscow.
I'm Nathan Hager, and this is Bloomberg.